And coming up on this episode of the Marty Mariner Show, well, it's the second of our grand final special episodes. If you haven't checked out episode 1, what are you waiting for? We had an absolute ball putting that one together for you. We had 3 former and current staff members of the club, Gabby Bowles, Carly Carmichael, and also Rachie Hart, talking to us about not only the things that they've been doing while they've been working for the club or used to work for the club in the past, but they are just absolutely massive Central Coast Mariners fans. It was absolutely awesome to catch up with those guys. We caught up with Harry Steele, who's a massive friend of us here at the Marty Mariner Show. And he talked a little bit about the preparation for the boys leading up to the big game. We also spoke to the gaffer, the head coach of the Central Coast Mariners, Nick Montgomery, and he had a lovely message right at the end too for all Central Coast Mariners fans. So once you've watched this one, of course, go back and watch episode 1. I think you'll really enjoy that one as well. Now, before I talk about the guests for tonight's show, just a couple of little thank yous. To Brooke, who handles all the ordering of the shirts and the tracksuits and the hoodies and all sorts of stuff like that. These shirts that have come out, there it is. You can sort of see that one there. I only ordered this the other day. It's here today. Thought I'd whack it on for the second episode. Brooke does just an outstanding job. You can imagine the traffic that's been going through that place of recent times. Brooke is an absolute rock star. So thank you, mate. Really, really appreciate what you do. And look forward to seeing you on Saturday night as well. And also to the guys out at Strip Tees, and be very careful how you look that up on the internet, kids. Striptees.com.au do a whole heap of T-shirts. And some of them that they have include the Simon Hill range, which is a whole heap of T-shirts based on the quotes of Simon Hill from over the years. And one that I've been wearing in some of the interviews that you've seen is a Central Coast Mariners one. The smallest club with the biggest heart. Absolutely love it. It's a great design. So, guys, awesome job. Thank you so much. And, I'll be definitely checking those guys out again at striptease.com.au. Now, let's talk about some guests for tonight. Now, could we actually have a grand final episode with the Central Coast Mariners and not have this guy on it? To me, he is the guy who started it all. He created the culture that's within the club. And I will never, ever forget those early years and seeing this guy just doing the stuff that he did. It was just phenomenal. Lawrie McKinna joins us for a bit of a chat, a bit of a chinwag, a bit of a conversation. It was really, really fun catching up with Lawrie. Dan McCamley, now the A-Team, Coast FM 963, have been covering games forever. Dan is a sideline eye. He's been on the show a couple of times before. I'm desperately trying to talk him into having an assistant on grand final day. How good would those seats be on the sideline, by the way? It was great to catch up with Dan. Looking forward to hearing his views on the season and the grand final. And, of course, to win a grand final, you need to score some goals. So I thought I'd bring in some goal scorers. And we've got a couple of the best, actually. Adam Kwasnik and Daniel McBreen drop into the Marty Mariner showroom to talk all about the season so far, the weaknesses that they see in Melbourne City, what the Mariners have to do, and we'll talk a little bit about that magical night in Gosford, 20,059 supporters packed in. How good was that? Still an awesome memory to have. It doesn't seem that long ago, but we can move on. It's grand final time. Let's do it all again. As it was in episode 1, the green room is slightly chockers, so we better get on with the show and get some guests on. The big boss man's coming up first. It's the Marty Mariner Show. And welcome back to the Marty Mariner Show. The queue of guests just keeps getting longer. Hopefully get shorter soon because I'm running out of battery on the laptop. But we couldn't have a grand final special without these two guys. First of all, a bloke who knows a lot about coaching this time of year. Absolute legend of the club. Certainly set the culture from day one. Lawrie McKinna, how are you doing, mate?
I'm doing well. Been enjoying the football and was doing some interviews today with some ex-Mariners legends, Daniel McBreen, Josh Rose and Matt Simon. So that was good. So
Nice.
hopefully that'll be out in the next few days with the APL. But no, it's the grand final fever's kind of hitting the Central Coast slowly.
Absolutely, mate. Well, we'll talk about a little interview that you did. Well, a bit of a microphone in the hand down at Terrigal before the semi-final, which was an absolute classic. We'll talk about that in a sec. And from Coast FM, he's going to be the sideline eye for the grand final. I'm totally jealous of this bloke getting to do that on grand final day, but they've done a great job for the whole season and continue to do so. Dan McCamley, how are you doing, mate?
Very well, thank you, Marty. And yeah, I've got the best seat in the house. I've had the best seat in the house for the last 5 years, but it's certainly exciting being on the sideline for grand final day. Probably a moment that I didn't think would come when I first started out with the way the club was, but it's been a great 5 years and it's going to be capped off with a great night in a couple of Saturdays' time.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely pumped and looking forward to it. Look, we'll talk about the game in a second, but yeah, Lawrie, I've got to come back. The A-League got you to do a bit of a street walk down at Terrigal, and you bumped into a few. I think Julie Goodwin was there and Monty walking past as well, and sounds like there's going to be some free coffees going around by the sound of it too. It was a lot of fun, mate. I've never had so many other fans from different clubs say, have you seen it? Have you seen it? It was brilliant. Looked like it was pretty cool.
No, I got asked a couple of days before it, and then obviously a wee phone call here or there helped get a couple of people walking past at the right time.
Good time.
But Julie Goodwin does come swimming with us, so she wasn't staged.
Yeah.
But it was actually funny. The next morning I went down, all the punters at the surf club went, "You looked as though you had a good time." I said, "Well, it was really enjoyable and just some good banter, but it was just good." I know the when they cut it down and that, it went really well, and it was just getting people interested in the game because we've got that 2 weeks to sell tickets. So
absolutely.
And for whatever reasons that is, I don't know, and I don't need to know, but it's ticket sales are going really well so far, I believe, and it's at CommBank Stadium, and obviously holds 30,000. So absolutely. Anywhere over 20,000 will be great. Great atmosphere. It's a great stadium right on top of the ground. So it's going to be a great day.
Yeah, no, looking forward to it, mate. And just on the atmosphere too, because I know, especially in that week leading up to that second semi-final, there seemed to be that buzz returning that we had not seen for quite some time. You've been there around it, people coming up, talking Mariners. Everyone had a yellow shirt on, looking forward to the game. The stuff that was going on outside of, obviously, Terrigal shopping centres, but there was that buzz returning, right? You can feel it coming back again?
Definitely. I couldn't make the game at the weekend because Sydney Olympic were playing, but the weeks before that, the lead up, you could feel in the crowd, and obviously the regulars have always been there. There are people there in the main grandstand that have been there 18 years when I was coaching, and always have a chat with them, and they're there. So they're always going to be there. But when I get down to Terrigal in the morning, there are more and more yellow hats popping up. There were always occasionally for a few years there when things weren't going too well. You'd see an odd one, and you'd see an odd shirt, but they've come out of the cupboard. They've been dusted down, and it's good. But you just wish these people supported the club all the time and that's not just sitting at home going, yeah, we'll watch the game tonight on TV. It's get down there and support. And even when I was at the Jets, I was working there as a CEO and that, and coming down, and that was it was a great atmosphere, and they brung a lot of people down here, and it was great. But the game up at Newcastle this year, it reversed because the Mariners had a fantastic. It was like the old days again when we used to go up there and take thousands up there, and it was. It's been a good build up, good lead up. Monty's got the boys doing ever so well, and we drew with Melbourne City, or I don't know, many weeks ago, but I think that proved to me that the Mariners can do it on the day. They've got a young team who they're fearful of nobody, and they don't need to be fearful because they know they can do it. And you saw what they've done to Adelaide over
Absolutely.
2 games, plus the one for the week before. They scalped them.
Yeah, exactly.
And so full of confidence. I think Monty will probably be disappointed the game's not this week because with the momentum he had, but credit to Monty, coaching staff, and Richard for doing what they've done and got the team back on the rails after a successful season last year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Dan, we were speaking before about those Adelaide games, and I said to a point, the last game of the season that got us into second, where we went, that to me was some of the best football I'd seen for probably the last 5-10 years. You were there. Did you just have that feeling that this thing was building? Because that momentum is just massive at the moment.
Yeah, it sure is. And we spoke, I think it was around the international break, and the form of the team was a little bit up and down, and they'd had a few disciplinary issues at the time. Since that international break, they've been outstanding. I think it's been 7 games since then. Monty's put out the same starting 11 in all of those games, and that continuity for mine is what's really catapulted this team into the form that they're in. They were just in Adelaide's head the whole season. They spanked them 4-0 at Central Coast Stadium earlier on this season. Went down to Adelaide with so much on the line and dispatched them 4-1 at Coopers. Coopers is this holy grail of football stadiums where it's such a tough road trip. And as Lawrie said, just absolutely zero fear, went down there and performed and put 4 past them again. And then it was a matter of, Carl Viet trying to play the mind games to get his team back into the contest, and they just never were in the contest. Even the performance in the first leg of the semi-final down there in Adelaide, the first half, the Mariners could have led 3-4, 5-1 at halftime.
Exactly.
I thought they went a little bit conservative in that second half, and it allowed Adelaide to come onto them, but they didn't make that mistake again at Central Coast Stadium. It was a bit cagey first half, but after halftime, it was foot to the floor, and Adelaide never looked like getting back into it. So, Lawrie touched on it. The 1-1 draw with City a couple of weeks back. Either team could have won that game. Both teams had chances. Both goalkeepers played extremely well.
Yeah, true.
The Mariners have a great young team, and the most important thing they've got is class up top. They've got goal scorers, and that's what you need to win the league.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Lawrie, I was saying before, I think that last game of the round where we beat Adelaide, I think that was almost 80% of the job done for the semis. I think we just totally dominated that game so much that Viet was wondering what he could change, what he couldn't change. The boys just took that so many steps forward before the semis even started.
Going down there, it's a hard play. I remember year 1 when we beat them in the semi-final down there 1-0, and Tom Ponliak scored after 6 minutes or something. And they pumped us, absolutely battered us all game, and we hung on, and we won the game and got in the grand final. But you're exactly right what you said about playing down a great atmosphere, crowds on top of you, but the Mariners taking the crowd out of the game. The way they played, they got the goals and that belief. And I know there were some mind games getting played, and that was that in the back of Monty had that in the back of head. He was using that all week as well. And I think Rado Vidicic has helped that along as well. After tipping Adelaide last week, when I spoke to Monty, he brought that up. He said, "Oh, thanks, Rado." So, the Mariners, they're going to go in with no fear. Nobody expects them. None of the pundits expect them to win. And I think we've always been like that on the coast. It's always been the underdog, and and they've nothing to fear. And when they've got such a young team, it's the youngest team in the league, and that's been brought through by Monty's work over the last 2 years in the youth team. They've no fear. They're just going to come and give it their best shot. And I know nerves can get to you in grand final day, and can change things. And Melbourne City's a great team, great squad, depth, internationals everywhere. But as you said, look, you've got Cummings on 17 goals. Is it 17? Assists. He set up a great assist last week as well. He's a class player, and he's been class all season. And if you can get, you had him on your show yet?
No, he cost me too much money. He charges too much, Mr. Cummings. No, we'll get him on post game, but it might be a few weeks after because he might be in recovery, I think. But
because I just love listening to his interviews because he's the most honest, tells how it is, no bullshit, just says it for the heart, and it's very entertaining.
He won't talk to me either, Marty. Don't worry, mate. It's all good.
I'm not the only one, I'm sure. But
I'm slowly breaking him down, I think. I've asked him 3 or 4 times post-game, and I'm slowly breaking him down. So hopefully grand final day.
Grab the shirt, get the mic, and just say we're talking, just see how we go. I'll back you for that. Dan, we've spoken early in the season too about, and there is the commentary about the young team. We've got our experienced players, which we'll touch on in a sec. Even when we spoke before, I didn't expect the development and the maturity coming out of these young players that we've seen. It's just really been the X factor that's taken us forward, hasn't it?
Yeah, it sure has. And they've done an excellent job with their visa players as well.
Yeah.
I think to have success in this league, you have to have a solid core.
Yeah.
And then you've got to hit on your visa players because that's where you're looking for impact.
Yeah.
And the Mariners have done that. Benny Cololo has been probably up and down, but when he's on, he'll cut in on his left foot. He might put one into the scoreboard and one into the top corner. You just don't know.
Exactly.
Tulio started a little bit slow.
Yeah.
Probably looked a little bit out of shape to start the season. I know Monty was playing him out wide for a little bit with Ayongo playing through the middle.
Yeah.
But since probably Christmas, he's been outstanding.
He stepped up.
Right up there with the best signings the Mariners have ever made. And they needed him to be because they couldn't just rely on Jason Cummings.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't, you've got a 17-goal scorer, but teams are going to target him, right? So you need the players around him to really chip in. And you look at Tulio, you look at Sam Silvera, who's come back to the club as well.
Yeah.
They've been outstanding all season. Sam Silvera won the Coast FM Player of the Season.
Yeah.
The fans are always voting him as player of the match, and he's just had such a good impact since he's come back. I'm so happy for him. I really enjoyed the interview you did with him, Marty.
Yeah. Good fella.
They've really hit on their recruits, and they've built around a young core. And you talk about them being young. I don't see them as inexperienced anymore, though. Josh Nisbet's been around for a couple of years now.
Yep.
Max Ballard's played 2 whole seasons. Harry Steele's been around the team for 2 whole seasons.
Exactly.
They've got young players, but they don't lack experience anymore. And I think that's the big difference. They've played in FFA Cup finals and they've played in semi-finals. So I don't think the grand final will overawe them. I think they'll be up for the challenge, and I look forward to seeing them trot out there on Saturday night.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one thing to me, I had this conversation on Saturday night, was the transformation in our backline as well. And I don't know what you reckon, Lawrie. Nectar Triantis looks like a young Wilkinson to me. He's poised on the ball, the time he gets to take. It's just like a flashback to years ago. And Storm Rue seems like a player repossessed at the moment. He's come back. I still think he's played his best football that he's ever played at the Mariners. That back line's just really brought it on, haven't they?
Well, Storm Rue was out of favour for a long time there, and he's came back. He's had a great season. Last season, he was in and out.
Yeah.
But we was actually talking about Trantis today. I was talking to Labi Haliti about him because he was at the Wanderers with him, and he was just a different player. He couldn't get a game, had no confidence, and he's come up here. It's just the same as Cummings came here. He was out of favour in Scotland. You've got other Sylvester. You're talking about these guys who went overseas, went to the Jets, and then came down here, and they've just found a place where they're comfortable with the coach, with the environment, and it's being a coach is all about getting the best out of the players, and Monty's getting the best out of his players, and they just keep blowing people away with what they're doing. And when I was in Sydney last weekend, when the game was on, and I was shouting the result about letting people know what the score was, they couldn't believe it, because a lot of people thought Adelaide's going to come back here, because during the season they had the firepower to do that, and when they scored the week before in the first 2 minutes, you go, oh wow, how's the team going to rebound for this? But I think that showed what the team's got. Dan, I think what you were saying about them coming back and that belief they've had that experience. They showed it then going down after 2 minutes and coming back so well.
Absolutely. And Dan, you'd see it more. I saw some video today, and I mean, the crowd was jumping. I didn't get to see it during the game, but Vuka, we scored 2 goals, and he's done the 50-metre sprint to the sideline. The bench was up. Every assistant was up. These are one big solid group, aren't they? It's not just the 11 on the field. That whole team, that whole squad believes.
Yeah, they sure do. And whenever you speak to any of the players after the game, they all say Nick Montgomery's the best coach they've ever had. And that's people like Danny Vukovic will say that. Some of the more Storm Rue will say things like that. Christian Theoharis, who's been excellent, since he's come to the club. He says it on a regular occurrence. They're just so tight knit. It's really good to see, because for a long time they weren't.
Yeah.
They've really put the emphasis on being that one team, one unit, and they're taking it out onto the field, and they're doing things for each other that in past seasons they probably haven't. So they've done a great job as a coaching staff to really bring that team together. I thought maybe over the Christmas break they'd brought 4 or 5 new faces in, and I thought that might have had a little bit of a destabilizing effect on the squad. That was when they had that little rough patch through the middle of the season, but they've come through that all guns blazing now, and they just look like a real solid unit that they're going to be hard to topple.
Absolutely. And McGarry coming in has just been a revelation to that left-hand side as well. He's an outstanding player. Lawrie, you mentioned before that Monty would probably want to be playing the grand final this weekend with that thing. But coaching-wise now, he's got that 2-week break. Is it a case of just keeping a lid on it? Is it trying to keep the level up? What will he be looking at doing with this gap that he's got now?
Well, I spoke to him. I saw him today because I was doing some interviews at Magenta Shores, and the boys trained this morning, and then we were playing golf this afternoon. So it wasn't a club golf day. It was just they played golf. They arranged, and the boys were quite bubbly. I didn't see them all, but you could just hear the noise in the background. You can always tell about your dressing room. You can always hear by the noise you hear, and they were all getting ready. I could hear Cummings in the background, roaring and shouting. But he'll make it as normal as possible. Monty's been there and done it himself as a player. He'll not be hyping it up, but the day just seeing them getting out there, having a game of golf, they have a bit of a laugh.
Yeah.
I think they've got a few things in the lead into I think there's a party on the night before.
They got the awards, I think, on the
awards on the Thursday. So it's going to be a long drawn out thing. They're down there for 2 or 3 days. So that could be a good thing. It's going to keep them busy. But I know Monty today, he's going, what is this? What is this? This doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He just want to get the game played. But it is what it is. They have to tick the boxes with the sponsors, and it's going in there low key is what Monty will do, and he'll not be blaming anybody. He'll keep the frustrations to himself and just get the boys' mind on what they've got to do in the most relaxed manner possible, because boys struggle when they get tensed up and they get nervous. So Monty will be doing his best to keep them as level as possible. And you saw that when they went down 1-0 after 2 minutes to Adelaide. There was no panic. They just went about their business, and McGarry scored that. It was a decent goal.
Wasn't bad. Reminds me of me in my heyday, Lawrie, that's for sure.
It wasn't a bad one at all.
Dan, Melbourne City finished first in the league. There's no doubt there's quality through the team. They've got depth. What is it you're looking from a Melbourne point of view? I mean, they're coming here. They know they're favourites to win the game. But from what have you seen of Melbourne this year, is there anywhere in particular you think we're just really going to have to be careful?
Oh, look, I think it's always tough for our midfield. Josh Nisbet and Max Ballard or Harry Steele, if he's in there, it always is 3-on-2. The way that the Mariners set up compared to how basically every other team sets up in the competition, they're always down a number. Now, Monty will have Silvera or Nkololo tuck in at stages to help them out, but where they've been really good over the last 7 weeks, probably, they've dominated the midfield, even down on numbers. Nisbet and Ballard have done a great job of not just holding their own, but, getting on top of the opposition midfield. The last game where they really struggled with that was probably the Wanderers game, where they went down 2-0 at Combank Stadium. But since then, Nisbet and Ballard have been outstanding. I think if they can do a job in the middle of the park up against a quality midfield from Melbourne City, as you said, they've got quality all over the pitch, but it really comes down to who controls that midfield and who can control the game.
Yeah.
I think if Ballard and Nisbet can hold their own in there up against, Aidan O'Neill and company, I think it'll go a long way to seeing the Mariners have success. The other thing is they've got so much firepower up top. Jamie McLaren scores goals for fun. But if you can limit the balls into him, I think Storm Roo was excellent against Craig Goodwin for 3 games in a row. McGarry's probably not he's probably not the better defender between him and Jacob Farrell. And I think you saw that with the Farrell substitutions with Irukunda.
Yeah.
But what McGarry does do is he gets forward, and that forces, that right winger to do a lot of work getting back. So if McGarry can keep getting forward, and I think it's Naboo or maybe Lecky, it depends which one. If he can force him back and do a bit of work in defence, and they can cut off those balls into the box to McLaren, then I think they'll go a long way to winning the game.
Absolutely. And Lawrie, last time I saw you on a grand final day, the shirt was off swinging it around at the amongst all the Yellow Army down there. What great memories. Just quickly, your memories. It was a decade. I couldn't believe when someone said the other day it was a decade ago. Memories of that day, mate. It was an absolute cracker, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I was up in the corporate box and was getting pictures taken with the Prime Minister and all that stuff. And then the game kicked off. I said, "All right, we'll see you later. I'm pissing off."
Exactly.
Went behind the goals and went down, had a great time. And then near the end, I think it maybe just after McBreen scored the penalty, I think the shirts were off. Yep. And I remember Senator Debbie Neal had came down looking for me because she's obviously wanting to get pictures in the paper and shit like that.
Of course. And
because I'm a very attractive guy, I get a lot of pictures taken.
Absolutely.
And she's walking, she saw me and she's coming along the line, and then she saw me rip my shirt off and she about turned and run off. And there are quite a few pictures floating about still of me with the shirt off with Eggy and a few others. And that was a great day because I'd been at the club for the beginning and I'd lost 2 grand finals. The grand final up in Brisbane, I thought we'd won that up there when I was football manager with Arnie coming as coach. Yeah. And then to finally get it, it was nice. It was the same. I was talking today when we get beat up in Brisbane. I felt like just when I was coaching the 2 other grand finals because it hurt you. Absolutely. And to win that and the relief, because obviously I've went on and became the mayor and I'm now chairman of the regional development up here. So the place means a lot to me. Absolutely. But to see people walking about now proud to say they're for the Central Coast again, it's nice. It's nice because for a while there, it was a wee bit of a laughing stock the way the team was doing for a few years there. But now it's back and that pride's back. Absolutely. And when they won it and I was the mayor and I got the ticket take parade through the city, I couldn't even been there. Because Sarah Buggy, who used to be like my PA the first few years of the club, she got married. So I would love the boys to win in a couple of weeks and get another 10, 12,000 people in the main street of Gosford into Kibble Park so I can actually be there.
It was absolutely crazy. I remember I was actually working at KFC at Wyoming on that day, and I said I was leaving early, and I pulled out the car park, turned around, and left the car there because that was as close as I was ever going to get to Gosford, and just walked in from there. It was absolutely, the scenes there were just incredible. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can have another one of those and you get to be there this time around.
I'll hopefully see David Farmer, the CEO of council, tomorrow morning down swimming. So the pressure is going to be put on him. I'm going to try and get a commitment.
Oh, absolutely. Well, how good would that be? I mean, the boys probably even with the season that they've done so far, they probably deserve one too. So
definitely.
All right, Dan, it's prediction time. What are you thinking about the game, result-wise? What's the heart say? What does the head say?
Their heart is definitely with the Mariners. The head knows that it's going to be tough. They're up against a quality Melbourne City side. I think the Mariners probably need to score 2 goals at least to win the game. I think City at least get on the scoreboard. I'll take the Mariners in a penalty shootout.
Oh, yes. How are we going to deal with a penalty shootout? That's going to be the longest time ever. Wow.
Well, I'll be putting in for overtime on Coast FM if it goes to penalties. But I just think, look, grand finals are always cagey. Both teams are attacking teams, but you just know that first sort of 15, 20 minutes is going to be a cagey affair. I'll take the Mariners in penalties.
Okay, I don't even know if the old ticker will take penalties, but anyway, we'll go with it. Lawrie, what are you thinking, man?
Well, I wish you'd asked me first because I was going to say extra time and penalties as well. I'll change mine slightly. The Mariners to win in extra time.
Oh, there you go. It'd be
goals will be scored because you can't keep Cummings and Jamie
McLaren and
too much talent out there, yeah. So they're going to be goals, but I reckon the Mariners in extra time. because they know I'm getting old and I can't take the pressure.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that one too, mate. Don't worry about that. Fellas, it's been great talking Mariners with you. Hope you both have an absolute cracker of a day on June 3rd. Dan, all the best on the sideline with the microphone and getting Cummings post-game.
Yeah, thanks very much, Marty.
We'll drag you down from the corporate boxes too.
Can you remember the Lawrie McKinna's Yellow and Blue Army? Well, it's back. We're taking a bus load down to the grand final. So Lawrie McKinna's bus is travelling down the road. So watch out.
I can't wait for the vision, mate. I can't wait for it. I'll grab you a beer when you're down there.
I don't drink.
I'll grab you a water then.
Tea with milk, thanks.
Hold the sugar. All right, no drama. All right, boys. Have a good grand final day.
See ya. See you, Dan.
See ya.
Bye.
And welcome back to the MartyMariner show. And the guests just keep on coming through those turnstiles. And well, we're going to need some goals this weekend to win the grand final. And between the three guys you can see on the screen, we've scored 63 goals for the Mariners. So we all feel qualified to be able to talk about it. First of all, he's no stranger to the MartyMariner show. First ever guest we ever had on the episode from memory. 136 appearances, 35 goals, second all-time on the list. Adam Kwasnik, how are you doing, mate?
Good, Marty. Thanks for having me, mate. Stoked to be in grand final week. And yeah, looking forward to the call.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And it's not the abominable snowman out there. There is a there is a striker in there too. He's the third on the all-time goal scoring list. 95 appearances, 28 goals. He's probably the one guy who hopes the Mariners win and Cummings gets nowhere near it. But he's right on his tail. He's a 2013 Joe Marston medalist, by the way, and the last Central Coast Mariner to score in a grand final. Danny McBreen, how you doing, mate?
I'm not as warm as Quaz with that beautiful picture of the beach behind him. I'm sitting out in the cold watching football, but I'm good. It's good to be here.
Doing the hard yards for us, mate. We really, really appreciate it. Boys, Quaz, I'll start with you. The improvement in this Mariners side, not just this season, just this last couple of seasons. We've gone from a team that just had some good performances and played pretty well to the outfit that we've got out there now. Where have you seen that biggest improvement come through in the squad?
Oh, it's amazing, the improvement first and foremost. You look at the squad and it's a bunch of youth players essentially sprinkled with someone like Danny Vukovic. I think he props up the average age most definitely. But look, let's be honest, the last two seasons now, they've been ultra consistent. You got to give credit to Monty and his coaching staff for that. There's just a real belief amongst the players, and I guess, results obviously help that, but all over the park, players are beaming with confidence, and it's fantastic. I hope they've learned from the Cup final last season, because this is going to be their biggest game to date. But yeah, as you mentioned off there, they're full of confidence at training, and they're taking it into games. So Monty and his coaching staff have done a remarkable job.
Yeah. And Macca too, like looking through the first 11, even the bench, it's hard to find a player that just hasn't improved even more this season, isn't it? They've just all been on that bus to get him better and better.
Yeah, they've improved out of sight. I think it's a mixture of really good recruitment and really good coaching over the course of the last 2 or 3 seasons. I think Monty's shown, along with Serge on his side, since they were in the academy, that they built that academy, and now they're reaping the rewards from that as well. But also the contacts that those two guys have over in the Portugal area, in the UK, to lean on players that probably didn't quite reach the heights over there, but were earmarked by people that they know to have the qualities needed. And they've been very good and very astute in those imports that they've brought in, and very rarely have they got it wrong. And look at Jason Cummings, for example. No one wanted to touch him over there with the barge pole because, his off-field dramas and all the stuff that had gone on. And he came over here to get another chance, and Monty's got the best out of him. And, maybe going to break the goal scoring record and win a grand final. But now there's chat that, teams overseas want him. And I think that signifies how well that not only are they good coaches as far as on the park, but how to man manage, how to deal with players. Everyone's different, Old Quazza needed an arm around the shoulder from Arnie to tell him that he loved him, and he'd turn around and boot me up the arse to tell me to get on with it. So I think I see many qualities that I saw in Graham Arnold in Nick Montgomery as well.
Yeah, Absolutely. And Quaz, I think a lot is made of Monty, this tough exterior, this boy who's played, over nearly 350 games for Sheffield and all this sort of stuff. But tactically, I think the games against Adelaide just proved it. That tactical mind that Monty has got, and obviously Serge working with him, it's probably underrated, right?
I think most definitely, and Macca mentioned the man management as well. That's probably the toughest side of coaching, managing players. But you're right, Marty. The tactical side of it, he's got it right over the last couple of seasons, and he's grown and he's evolved as well. When you look at the Mariners now, they play such a high tempo game, and there's one gear, and a lot of the teams, I've said this before, they just can't live with that tempo and that structure that the Mariners have, especially on the break. They're fantastic to watch, and they're reaping the benefits at the moment.
Absolutely, and Macca, the game of the last round when we played Adelaide, before the semi started, it got us into second spot. To me, that first half was some of the best football I'd seen a Mariners team play for God knows how many different seasons. How much did that game and the way we played contribute towards continuing on in the semi-finals? Because to me, Adelaide seemed to be chasing their tail after that first game.
Yeah, look, I think the team seems to be peaking at the right time. Adelaide had a run of 14 games, 5 games out from the finals, and they seemed to wither, whereas Monty had his boys just really peaking coming into finals time, and they just seem to be right across the park, oozing with confidence. What I liked about, you talk to the players during the season, it says, without the ball, Monty's pretty strict on, you do your job, you win the ball, you be aggressive, we go as a unit, but go and express yourselves. You played football, particularly in that front area of the park. There's a reason you joined to a football club to play, because you loved it. Go and express yourself. Do all the things that have caught our eye and bring them here. And he doesn't put the shackles on them. They work as a unit when they need to, but if they have to go and express themselves individually, they've got that freedom to do that as well. And you can see the enjoyment in the players, that they just seem like they love to go out there and play that way with the group of guys around them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think one thing too was that, we spoke in the early part of the year about the squad, was hoping that it would gel, but looking at the depth that we had, and you look at the players that came off the bench for that last game in Gosford, you had Maresh coming off the bench, Harry Steele came on and fortified the middle. You've got Farrell, who came on and did the job on Irakunda again, Dan Hall. We've just got that much depth on the bench at the moment. Dylan Wenzel-Halls didn't even get on the park. With just that much talent. We haven't had that depth to be able to push like that, have we?
Oh, it's definitely not. And I think when we first came on this show, that we spoke about the depth being challenged, and I think some players, individual players, have just taken it to a whole new level. Whereas I questioned them at the start of the season whether they can replicate what they did. Macca just mentioned then that the recruitment that both Monty and Serge have done. We didn't know those players at the start of the season, and what seasons they've had is just remarkable. Tullio, fantastic. Silvera, we all knew he was capable, but we weren't sure. They've just turned it around individually and collectively as a unit. They're just working for each other. Macca mentioned the defensive unit. They're so well organised, and they're willing to go that extra bit defensively. And then when they get the ball, they just break and go with purpose and express themselves. And they've scored the most goals in a season for the club, and they've broken many other records as well.
Yeah, no, they're doing real well. And I think, and Macca too, just touching on that back line again, I think, to bring in McGarry when we did was an absolute godsend, because he's absolutely nailed it since he's walked in to the club. I think it's Storm Roo's best season in the club that he's ever had. He's just had a renaissance, that guy. Nektar and Kaltak in the middle. We really needed that back line, to be solid. They've done the job, and they're just playing outstanding football. And Farrell can't even get in the start 11 at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's it. Start of the season, we've got a guy at centre back who has never had a professional contract before at 29. How that has happened, I'll never know.
Yeah,
because he's got everything.
Yet,
and then we've got a young guy who really wasn't getting much game time anywhere else. And those two, for me, as a centre back pairing, have been probably, outside of Marcelo and Murchler at Western Sydney, who I think were phenomenal. They've probably been the best centre back pairing behind those two, and they've actually grown in stature as the season's gone on. And he just seems to have this knack, Monty, of getting the best out of these guys and finding them. Other people have discarded him or not given them time, and he brings them in, and all of a sudden they seem to have this passion and fight and desire again, and they're performing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Quaz, you know the bloke really well. Vuka in goals. I mean, again, talking to Monty the other night, just couldn't speak highly enough of the guy. Not only is he leading the club, was there on the day where Matty Simon gave him the armband. He was just so proud. He's just, you can just see now, he's just so focused, and those guys just idolize him. He's just a natural leader, right?
Yeah, he's obviously grown into that role as well. I think similar to Matty Ryan, he's another one sort of grew into that leadership role. And, Danny's come back from overseas, from Europe, and had a successful time over there. And then, unfortunately what happened with Simo, he was given the armband. And, I thought there was a period early on in the season, he had, World Cup and aspirations to represent his country one last time on his mind. But once that got sorted out and he went to the World Cup and he came back, he sort of was a changed person in the sense of there was full focus towards the Central Coast Mariners. Yeah. He's probably had one of his best seasons in terms of clean sheets. I don't know what the stats are on that, but he's a real leader from the back. You hear him barking, week in, week out. And, he's one of those players that bought in very early to what Monty wanted, and the rest have followed. And he's going to be there on the grand final day. I think it's his fourth grand final now, and obviously won one with Sydney FC. So hopefully he can get one with the Mariners.
Wouldn't that just be the best? Talking about our opponents, Melbourne City, the semi-finals against Sydney, 1-1 against Sydney in that first game. Do you think Mac and Monty would have picked up a lot from that game? Because they did seem off it a little bit for me.
Yeah, I think Sydney actually played Melbourne City quite well in that first game. Probably had the better chances in the game to take a lead out of it. Look, Monty definitely would have been watching it, looking to see how they could expose Melbourne City, but he probably looked back more to when they played them last, about 6 or 7 weeks ago, I think, maybe, roughly that 1-1 game, where if you look, I was only looking at the other day, and the stats across the board on that game were literally split down the middle, 50-50. The shots were almost exactly the same, shots on target, big chances created. Every stat was almost shared, and it was 1-1. And most teams come up against Melbourne City and it's a case of, well, okay, how do we contain them? But Monty says, well, let's go at them and make problems for them. And I think that makes a big problem for Melbourne City. If you can cut off that supply line to the front 3 or 4, those danger men, which is easier said than done at times, then you might have a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and Quaz too, that second game, I guess it's hard to tell. Sydney have Burgess sent off early in the game. Made it really, really hard for them down in Melbourne. But I mean, they've got strength all over the park, Melbourne City, but in particular, where will Monty have to really focus if we're going to win this game?
I think Macca hit the nail on the head, just sort of nullifying or sort of eliminating that supply to that front third. And, it'd be interesting to see if Monty comes out really aggressive and tries to, win the ball high up the park, or whether he sort of backs off. I tend to think he's going to go for it. He's done so all season. There's going to be no holding back, and it's going to be a real end-to-end game. And I guess if that's the case, you mentioned the back four earlier, Marty, they really need to stand up against the likes of, McLaren and Leckie. I see McLaren being one of the most intelligent strikers I've ever seen. He's so clever, off the ball with his movement. Someone like Kautek and Trientis really need to be cautious of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Macca, this the 2-week break that we've had, we're just over halfway through now. I went to the fan day that the Mariners had the other day, and the boys were all relaxed and we're all cool, but they were absolutely itching to get this game started. Just from your own point of view, first of all, do you think it would suit either of the sides, or who does it suit more to have that 2-week break?
I don't really think it does. I think as players, as you said, they would have all wished the game was only a week. It's a normal routine. It's sort of broken up their normal routine, this delayed holding of the grand final. And as a player, you just want to get out. And you can talk about maybe either team, if someone had a niggle or whatever, but if you're talking to the camps, both of them seem to have got through their last games okay. And when it comes to a grand final, it's going to take a pretty big niggle to stop you playing anyway. So you can tend to get through a grand final. So I don't think either team really would have liked it. I don't think it's going to really benefit one team or the other anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, Quaz, that Monty's been there, done that before. It's probably in times like this that the amount of games he's actually played himself at that level will probably bring him to the fore, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think Monty's obviously had that experience from playing as well, and it is a bit unique the fact that they've had to wait two weeks without a game for a cup final, for a grand final. But I'm really interested to see how both teams start. I think that's going to be key as well. I think we know the Mariners really aggressive, and whether Melbourne City are going to come out like that as well. I'm sure they both probably would have had intra-club games throughout last week just to keep ticking along. So really interested to see how both teams start, and I think that could put a big handle on who asserts themselves early would sort of go on with the game possibly.
Absolutely. And from what I'm hearing, the ticket sales aren't too bad at all. There's plenty of buses that are going to be coming down. I think 16 was the last count of buses coming down from the coast, and track work. Go figure. How could that work out? It was Macca, the game the other night at Gosford, 20,000 fans. It was incredible, right? I know you've spoken about on air on Paramount, but it just, for me as an old Mariners fan, just sitting there in the days where we had 1,500, 2,000 people, to see that capacity of stadium brought a tear to my eye. It was just magical night, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Record crowd for a football match, sellout. Can't get any more seats in there. And what was also good that we were talking about it after the game was that there's so many young people out there. This is a new generation of kids and who are going to be now Mariners hooked, and hopefully it goes on this week and goes successfully so that they want to come back next year. And for me, that stadium rocks no matter whether it's got 6,000, 8,000. There's always a bit of a vibe. It's a great stadium for football, but with 20,000 people in there, it was unbelievable. It was fantastic. And it was a testament to all the hard work for all those people who have been there through all the hard years. When all the talk was the club should fold, it should move somewhere else. It's got nothing. And they've worked their ass off through those times. And it's great to see that all paying off in the end.
No, absolutely. And Quaz, you've played many a game there too when that stadium's been rocking as well. It's for the players. It is that 12th man, isn't it? It literally is something that can lift you when you really need it.
Oh, it's huge, especially in the lead up to the game. Warm up, you see, the three stands that are, either side and obviously behind the goal, just, fully packed. It's incredible. And, what was fantastic to see for me was on the way in, you had the bars and cafes, pubs and all that just chocked to capacity, just a sea of yellow and navy. And we saw photos pre-game, the lineup to get into the stadium, 300, 400, 500 meters deep. And a big moment was Tulio's second goal, that Bay 16 and what happened behind him when he went and celebrated with him there. That was a goosebump moment and fantastic night all around.
Absolutely. And Macca, you would have seen it too, obviously talking to the boys after the game, but they stayed out there for a hell of a long time after that game, and it was bloody cold. And yet they were going to make sure they shook every hand, they saw every kid, they took every photo. It was a massive game, but yet they were going to do that. That's just this belief, that's this culture that they've got in the club, right?
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone really wanted to leave, did we? We were there for ages after. I just stood out on the pitch with Matty Simon and Monty for a long time, just taking it in. And, the team photo that normally gets done in the corner after the game was so big they couldn't fit in the corner. So it was, there was just a real buzz and a real atmosphere, and you just didn't really want it to end because of all that heartache that has happened, just amplifies it. And it was just great.
Yeah, absolutely. Quaz grand final day, obviously we want all our boys to stand up and give it a crack. But if you could highlight one player that you really think needs to have a cracker of a game, who are we looking at? Who would you think?
Yeah, I think it'd be easy to just look at one of the front third players, but I'm going to go Nectar Triantis. I think if he can sort of really stand up to the intelligence of Jamie McLaren, I think we'll go a long way. Macca mentioned nullifying, getting the ball to that front third. Jamie McLaren doesn't have a real deal to play in build-up, but he's there in and around the box when it matters. And I think Nectar Triantis really needs to stay on his game and sort of eliminate that. I think if he can stand up, and then my favourite player, Tulio, I think if he can have another remarkable game. We saw the flair that he has, but he's got goals and assists in him. Those two players for me, if they stand out, I think we'll go a long way to winning another grand final.
Oh, that flick that we've seen 1,000 times over the head, that was Quasi in his heyday, if ever I've seen that before, in the middle of Gosford. Quasaldinho, exactly. Bring him back, I say. Macca, what about yourself? I mean, we could highlight any player in the squad, but is there anyone in particular you just think has a cracker of a game?
Look, I sort of have to echo the thoughts of Quaz there. Tulio, for me, going forward, is a man that's could create anything for us, but I'm looking at Brian Kaltak at the back as well. I remember the last game, we constantly were talking about Jamie McLaren. He can go 90 minutes where you don't really see him. He presses a lot for the team, but then if you cut off the service to him, he's a penalty box guy. He makes great moves, but 90 minutes you can go, oh, and then all of a sudden, half a second, they switch off and he gets a chance. And I think it was like the 91st minute in the last game where he almost got a chance to steal the points, and we hadn't seen him for 92 minutes. So I think that's important. The two centre-backs, same as what Quaz said there, they've got to be on their wits have got to be on for the whole of the game, because he only takes one half a chance and bang, the tide changes.
Absolutely. And Quaz, I mean, I see a lot of video too, especially with Caltech, because he's not afraid to push forward. He's not afraid to take the speed that guy has in getting back in line is phenomenal, isn't it?
It sure is, mate. I sure wouldn't like to come up against him, but I think there needs to be a cautious approach there as well. We've seen, a number of times that Caltech sort of bursted forward, Trientis allowed to carry well into, the opposing half, and obviously the fullback sort of bombing on and sort of involved with the front third play. I think there needs to be periods of the game where you just control the situation and control the tempo of the game, and you don't always have to break forward with urgency.
Yeah.
I think that Melbourne City are a team that if you do that a number of times, they can catch you out on one or two occasions. And as Macca said, if that happens once or twice, it could be game over.
Absolutely. And Macca, leading up to a grand final, were you someone who would watch as much football as you could and stay in the moment, or was it when I've got time out, I'm going to go as far away from it as I can?
Yeah, I was a pretty much of an idiot off the park up until the kickoff anyway, wasn't I?
We've never heard that before, though. Never heard that.
I know. For me, basically, it would be just go away, and as long as I was enjoying myself, just sort of trying to take your mind away, I guess, from the importance of it. Whether that was football, because sometimes you can watch a football and just enjoy it without thinking too much into it. Not so much these days. You're always analysing and looking at stuff. But I just wanted to enjoy it. I think in 2011 was a tense lead up to the grand final. I think it showed when we played. But 2013, it was a real air of enjoyment around it. Let's make the most of this. And we were carrying on at training. Like, we trained professionally, but we'd have a laugh and a joke. And that's the way I used to approach it, trying to just be relaxed and take the sting out of it, I guess.
Yeah. And Quaz, were you a nervous wreck before the big games, or it was just give me that kickoff, I just can't wait?
Yeah, I listened to Macca and Simo, post game a couple of weeks ago at the stadium, and I reflected on it. They spoke about you go out there, the game starts, a whistle, you start playing, and obviously the nerves sort of go away. But when you're sort of sitting in the stand and you're sort of watching, or you're commentating, whatever we're doing, you're riding that for the whole 90 minutes. Whereas for the players, it goes away. And I guess in the lead up to things, there's going to be nerves, always nerves. If you didn't have nerves, you're a bit of a weirdo, I believe. But I really do think that, once the game kicks off, the players will settle right down. But the lead up, that's something that Monty and his coaching staff have to sort of manage. Obviously, they've done it last week. They have to do it for the rest of this week. And once you get to game day, it's showtime. It's all on the players.
Because I remember the code when you were on the
series,
and you it actually comes to you, and you said, "I'd rather be out there. This is horrible watching the game on the sideline."
That's horrible watching it from the sideline. I guess there's a connection from both, Macca and myself and all the players. There's no question that, we all want the Mariners to win on Saturday night, but there'll be, a real pressure situation for all of us. There'll be, nerves, before, during. Let's hope they can get one for us home, and it'll be party time. Macca, you going out on Saturday night?
Yep.
As Martin reaches quickly for the record button just to pause the whole thing before we go any further. Game day for you, Mac. I mean, I know obviously with Paramount Network 10, you'll be a busy boy. What does it look like for you on the day?
The days, it's pretty relaxed during the day. It's a busy week, to be honest. You got all the stuff coming up with the Dolan Warren Awards, and then there's the grand final party thing the night before that I'm involved in as well. And then on the Saturday, it's me and watch my son play football in Sydney and spend the day with him. He's going to come along to the game, and we're just going to be waiting eagerly to get there. And it's one thing that I've enjoyed too is that my son plays for the Jets. And I took him to a Mariners game a few months ago. And on the way, I said, how do you think we'll go tonight? And he was like, I'm a Jets. And then after the game, after Jason Cummins gave him his shirt, he was going, how good were we tonight, Dad? And that's what the atmosphere of Industry Group Stadium did. The team played well. The crowd was so great that all of a sudden he was sucked into it. And he was like, we're great, Dad. And same again, took him last week and he was just stoked about the whole thing. So I'm slowly twisting him, even though he plays for the Jets, to become a Mariners supporter as well.
And will you be sneaking a Mariners shirt into the network coverage, mate, or won't they let you?
Oh, I'm sure I can get one somewhere. I'll get one of Quasi's old ones out.
Oh, there's plenty around, mate. There's plenty. A lot of them are in frames. A lot of them in frames and signed, from what I'm hearing. So, what about yourself, Quas? You'll be in the safe standing near the bar there somewhere, I'm sure.
No, I'm actually doing radio for SEN, so I'm stoked to be calling it. It's my birthday this week, so I was planning on having a big 40th party.
Happy 50th, mate.
Yeah, but we cancelled it. We cancelled it from the 3rd, and we moved it back back a few weeks. And I'll be heading to the game with the family, and then going to the commentary box doing radio.
Oh, beautiful! So we'll be seeing you afterwards as well, then.
Oh, definitely. We'll just have to wait and see when.
Celebrate a
grand
final win and a birthday.
Where we go?
I'll tell you off air, mate.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Look, thanks so much for spending some time with us. It's a busy old week for everybody, but it's such a big weekend for the club. It's great to see the Mariners back in a grand final, and it was awesome to have you both come in for a bit of a chat. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to it.
No worries. We'll see you there on Saturday. And that brings us to the end of our Marty Mariner Show Grand Final Specials. Thank you so much for sticking around right until the end of episode 2. I hope you're nice and pumped and ready for Saturday night, just like I am. Massive thank you for coming on the show tonight, Lawrie McKinna, Dan McCamley, Daniel McBreen, and Adam Kwasnik. Honestly, really, really appreciate it. Looking forward to Saturday night. I hope you've got your tickets. It should be an absolutely awesome event, and I can't wait to see the yellow and blue everywhere. And as I said in episode 1, there's a little subscribe button down the bottom. Help this little old Mariners channel get some numbers behind it. Help us spread the word around the place. It is free to do so, and it just means so much for the continuation of the channel. Thanks so much for watching. Go the Central Coast Mariners. Can't wait to see you there on Saturday night. It's been the Marty Mariner Show.